Okay, let's begin. So we're up to Siman Chof Hey Sif Yud Beis. Im meniach tefillin kama pam b'yom. Interesting halacha. What if you put on tefillin many times a day? Do you have to make a bracha each time? So tzarich levarich aleihem b'chol pam. Every time you put on tefillin, you have to make a new bracha. Nishmetu mim kaimam. If they slip out of place, or mamashmesh bohem lachzir mim kaimam, tzarich levarich. Your tefillin sort of slip off, and then you sort of return them to their place. Tzarich levarich. And you're going to make a new bracha. And whichever one slips, you're going to make the bracha accordingly. So, as if you're putting on one tefillin. Because it'll come on Siman Chavov, which will miss him doing the next Siman. If a person moved his tefillin, in order to return it to its proper place, again, tzarich levarich. And others say no, if you're just moving it back into the right place with the intention lachzir miyad, sometimes people do that, they don't like speaking with their tefillin, so they just lift it up and they put it back on or whatever it may be, then says the Ramah, let's do the Mishnah Berurah till there. Says in the Shabur and Mem Gimel, but kol pam. So every time you put on tefillin, you need to make a new bracha. Afilu im kashesilkon hayadait lachzim tekef. Even if your intention was to put them back on as soon as you take them off. Afilu im loishina mekoyme klal ben time. Even if you didn't change your makom, you didn't change your location at all. V'haramah b'samach paligazeh. The Ramah soon is going to argue with this. V'im b'shas bracha hayadait she'achach yisalkem v'yachsav yanichem. If for whatever reason, b'shas the bracha, you intended to take them off and put them back on again. Mukach midivrei Magen Avraham le'el b'siman ches sivkot and tes zayin. D'lekula alma ein tzarich lachzav levarich. You do not need to make a new bracha. Nishmetu. If your tefillin slipped out of place and then you put them back on, so we said you make a new bracha. Kosav hashla. Nowadays we don't have that practice, that if your tefillin slipped out of place and you just readjust and put them back in the right place, the minhag seems to be that you don't make a new bracha. Mishum b'shas tefillah mistama ein mesiach da'at mehem. Its presumption is during tefillah you haven't lost your thought of the fact that you're wearing tefillin. And therefore it's like taking them off with the intention to put them back on straight away. The pasuk hagah b'samach te'ein tzorich lachzav levarich, that the Ramah says in such a situation you don't need to make a new bracha, and therefore the minhag seems to be that if your tefillin slipped out of place, even though the Mechaber says you do make a new bracha, the minhag seems to be that you do not make a new bracha. If you look at 52, Omnam. He says, however, if your talis falls off during davening, during Shemona Esra, and other people put the talis back on you, you sort of agitate your tzitzis, you move them around, and you make a new bracha. Because we said in Hilchos Tzitzis that if your talis falls off, that's considered a hefsek. When you put it back on, you need to make a new bracha. It's got to be, we discussed that there. Okay, carrying on the Mishnah Berurah. V'imkein, oisen k'sheholchin lefa'amim at chatzos betfillin. There are those people who wear tefillin the whole morning till lunchtime, till chatzos. Im nishmetum ro levarich. If they slip off, then it's ro levarich. V'achai adam kosov. Da'af b'shas hatfillah im nishmetum avarich lo hefsid. If you make a bracha lo hefsid, you haven't lost out. M'kol makom near d'lemayit v'brachas odif. But don't try and minimize the amount of brachas you make. Continuing the Mishnah Berurah, mem hey, mim kaimon, dafka kulon orubon. And if it only moves a little bit, even though you've got to put them back into the right place, then you don't need to make a new bracha. It's quoting the Taz. If you look at 53, the Linyan sits is shenishmetzameh ala guf v'nofla. If the sits fall off a person, kozva shulchan aruch le'el sherakim nofla kula yesh lachzav v'varech. When do you make a bracha on the sits that fell off? When the whole talus came off you. Avim nofla miksosa, afilu nofla ruba, ein levarech shenis. Then you don't, says the Shulchan Aruch. Because of Mishnah Berurah Sham, shledas hataz afim nofla ruba yesh lachzav levarech v'shekein sirdeit hagon. And therefore the Mishnah Berurah was more machmir than the Mechaber, and he quoted the Gon and others that if the majority of the talus, even if it's hovering around your knees or something, and you caught it, but the majority fell off you, then even then you would make a new bracha on the talus. Okay, memvav tzarich levarich. This is going on. This is going on the end of the Mechaba. The Sarich Levarich says the Mishnah Berurah the Kiven Shehezizon Mimkaiman have a Kamosha Sirin Legamri. Since you've moved them, it's as if you've moved them totally. Shalom Levarich. Kiven de Hezizon, so this is the Ramah there. V'yesh Omer Shalom Levarich v'Hachinog. So says the Mishnah Berurah in Sif Katan Mem Zayin. Kiven de Hezizon al Das Lach. So since you moved them with the intention to put them back on, you say if you want to speak, so you lift up your tefillin and you speak and then you put them back on. That was your intention. Mashenkin b'shenishmat tumei atzman, as opposed to where they slip off by themselves. Omrinan the tek of shenishmat oz the mitzvah. Once they've moved off by themselves, then the mitzvah's gone. And that's why the Mechaber was silent there. V'da'od, and no further. If you take the tefillin off fully, even with the intention to put them back on, the Ramah argues, even if you move places, or pasku ha'achronim, and the achronim paskin like him, that you don't make a new bracha. You don't intend to put them back on straight away. You intend to put them back on a little bit later. Even if you change your mind and you put them back straight away, or you intended to put them back and you got delayed for some reason, there your plan had changed, and therefore you do need to make a new bracha when you put them back on. We've spoken about this before. If you take the tefillin off in order to go to the bathroom, even if you intended to put them on immediately after you come out of the bathroom, you need to make the new bracha, because you're not allowed to go into the bathroom with tefillin, and therefore the mitzvah has gone. Like we'll say in Samachay, if you take off the tefillin but you need to pass wind, you took them off, and therefore since you're not allowed to wear them when you're passing wind, therefore again you have to make a new bracha when you put them back on. The footnote number 55, just the first 3 lines, the contrast when going into the bathroom is when you take your talis off. According to strict halacha, you're allowed to go into the bathroom with the talis, and therefore so even if you take your talis off, which you should do, and you leave it outside, since me'ikar din, you could have gone into the bathroom with your talis, when you come back out, you do not make a new bracha on your talis. Masha'enkin the tefillin, since you're not allowed to go into the bathroom with tefillin, when you take them off, you come back out, you've got to make a new bracha. Okay, let's carry on. Misha Meniach, carrying on the Mechaba. Misha Meniach tefillin shel yad ubirich. A person puts on his tefillin shel yad, and he made the bracha. Ubetchilas hahiduk nifsak hakesher. And as you're doing it up, the kesher, the tzua breaks, or the knot breaks. Shel yad. V'hutzruch la'asos kesher achen. You've got to make a new kesher. Omnam lo yesiach daita. You're not diverting your mind from tefillin. Because you haven't been Mesiach Das. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Sif Kotan Memches Shel Yad. And the same is true if you put on your tefillin sharash and something snapped. Lo hisiach daito, you haven't lost your concentration, and therefore afilim soch ben time letzorech inin. Even if you speak in between, you ask the sofa to help you, or you got someone to help you. Eina hefsek b'di'evet or kudlekaman sim kuf samach zayin siv vov. Va'ayin le'el b'simen ches Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotan kaf ches. Ulevarich. And ein tzorich lachsav levarich to kim the loinasa adayin mitzvahs hanocha, says the Mishnah Berurah Nun in Sivkot Nun. Since loinasa adayin mitzvah hanocha, you haven't done the mitzvah of hanochas tefillin. Nimsa loichol adayin habrocha ashom mitzvah. The original mitzvah hasn't been chal on any mitzvah. The original bracha, hasn't been chal on any mitzvah. V'asiyas hakesha ein mafsik, and making a new knot in between is not a hefsik. Kim mishum ein ha-mitzvah, that's considered part of the mitzvah. Al-kain chayil habrocha al hanocha shnia. Therefore, the bracha continues on the second hanocha. Someone who's got tefillin without a kesher, or veirich also kesher v'nech, and he makes a bracha, and then he makes the kesher, and then he puts on the tefillin. But the evet shapa elu bracha also, the bracha works. The asiyas hakesher ain't a hefsek, because the making of the kesher is not considered a hefsek. If after you put on the tefillin shel yad on your arm, the nifsek hakesher, the kesher breaks, then tzorich lachs levarich the kvar nigma ma'is ha-mitzvah, because once you've put the tefillin on, and then later, after you're doing the ritzuas, then it breaks, then you've already done the mitzvah, the bracha has already been chal on that mitzvah, finished. And it's as if the tefillin have fallen out of place. because then you have to make the new bracha again. So it depends very much when it breaks. If it breaks before you've put it on, then you do not need to make a new bracha. But if it breaks after you've put the tefillin on, then you would. The Achronim, however, argue with this, and they write: it also goes on the tefillin sharash, and therefore, so long as you have not yet put on the tefillin sharash, adayin osuk b'mitzvah hashayach le'osa bracha, you're still involved in a mitzvah which is relevant to the bracha. V'lo nigmar adayin hamitzvah sheberach halov hasheniach gam sharash, and you haven't yet finished the bracha until you've put on the sharash. Al kein kamoi b'huta kesher shel yad koydem hanocha sharash posek hashulchan aruch de'ein tzorach lachzav levarich hu adin nami. So too in our case, im nifsak hakesher gam kein ein tzorach lachzav levarich. Okay, and therefore he would argue with the Mechaba. So therefore, if the Ritzua snaps afterwards, so long as you haven't put on the Shal yet, the bracha has not yet been completed, and therefore you would not need to make a new bracha according to these Achronim. V'im nifsak hakesher sharosh, I'm on the last skinny line of the Mishnah Berurah. V'im nifsak hakesher sharosh o shel yad la'achar shekvaniach sharosh v'hidkoi. But if, however, the Ritzua, it snaps after you've put the Shal on, then sorech lachzav levarich. Then even the Achronim would agree you've got to make a new bracha. V'im ein sham mish yodea lesaken hakesher. What if you're in shul and no one knows how to fix the kesher? That's the likely scenario. Your tefillin break and you've got to therefore borrow others. Then you've got to make a new bracha. Because that's more akin to that, and that's a new set of tefillin, and you need to make a new bracha there. Okay, let's just finish off the Mechaba. Top line of the Mechaba. If the shel yad was undone koydem hanocha sharash, before you put on the sharash, mahatkon, you just have to tighten it. Ve'ein tzorach lachzav levarich. You just tighten the shel yad and then you put on the sharash. But if you put on the sharash, and then the shel yad sort of undoes, mahadek u'mevarich, you're mahadek and you make a bracha. Let's just do the Mishnah Berurah on those 2 points. Nun aleph, huta hakesher, if the kesher becomes undone. And so too if it slips out of place. You secure it in its place to ikka mitzvah hanocha, because that's the ikka mitzvah of hanocha. Nun beis, mahadek u'mevarich, it's like they've slipped out of place. And so too, if the shel rosh becomes undone after it was tightened, it was secured, you're going to make a new bracha when you secure it on the shel, on your head. The Shla argues. Okay, let's finish. It's mutter to make a bracha on borrowed tefillin, but not on stolen tefillin. Says the Mishnah Berurah, shu'ulim. Even if you borrow without intention, it's mutter. Because we've said previously that if you're borrowing without permission, there is a presumption that the person would lend you his tefillin, and therefore you can make a bracha on that. The rak kashi kaplem, but you've got to fold them back. Below you say makam harishon, but you don't take them out of the original place. Kamei betalis le'el, like we said with talis siman yudalid ayin sham, and we had various other criteria over there. If he's in shul, you've got to ask him. You can't do it on a repeated basis, etc., etc. You've got to put them back as you found them. But so you make a bracha on shulim, but not on guzulim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, guzulim tahavale mitzvah haba ba'avera, because that's a mitzvah b'ba'avera. Va'afilu achayish, even if the guy's given up hope of finding his tefillin, you do not make a bracha on stolen tefillin. Va'afilu b'di'evet, lo kiyam mitzvah's tefillin. You haven't fulfilled the mitzvah of tefillin. If somebody sold tefillin that was after the yush, that was stolen, das hamogen avram, the second person can make the bracha. The day have a yush, because for him it's yush v'shini rishus and shini rishus. In all situations, you do not make a bracha on stolen tefillin. Even though the gra is of the opinion that b'di'evet you've been yoitza. It's considered disrespectful, blasphemous to make a bracha, because through your taking them, then they've gone out of the rishus of the bailim. But a person who bought them from the second person, near the yuchel levarich, he can make a bracha. Okay, that's the end of Sif Yud Beis.